Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. Today is Wednesday. That means that tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., coffee and coaches conference call as usual. A great way to start your day with a little bit of Q&A, great people, learn something to start off your Thursday morning. Please join us again, 6 a.m. There is no charge for that other than showing up and maybe having a cup of coffee. All right, digging into today's Q&A is a little something different. So I had a conversation with Pat Davidson. He started a podcast, and so I'm on there, and Pat was kind enough to send me a little bit of our conversation. This section is on models, and we started talking about models a few years ago. Pat and I spoke at the Reckoning at Mike Ranfone's place up in Hampton, Connecticut. Must-see place if you're in the neighborhood. Mike's awesome. He's got a great place to train, by the way. But anyway, Pat and I spoke at the Reckoning, and one of the concepts that I brought up was this concept of modeling, because we're dealing with complex situations where we are always making decisions based on incomplete information, which is why we have to have an effective model. The more effective your model, the better your interventions, the better your interactions. And so this is a segment where we sort of expand upon the whys and the wherefores and the hows of such things and the usefulness of models. So I have to thank you, Pat, for the conversation. First of all, always great to talk to you. And then thank you for letting me use this on social media. I think a lot of people will find it useful. Everybody have an outstanding Wednesday. I will see you tomorrow, 6 a.m., Coffee and Coaches Conference Call.
So, one of the things when you did speak at the Reckoning, one of the things that you said that I think stuck with a number of people was write out your model. No, seriously, write out your model.
Yes.
And I took it very seriously, and I started really the next week, and that led me to creating pretty much everything that I do professionally now. It led to me. I wrote it out. I wrote it into a book eventually. It took 3 years later, but it turned into that. It turned into a seminar series that I teach, and it was a hell of a process. And the other thing, and it's this intrinsic knowledge becoming extrinsic, and then returning to valuable intrinsic is kind of how I see it. And the other thing is this principle-based approach. And I really wanted to hear more from you, like your thoughts on when you think about creating a model, or what models really represent to you. What is that?
In its simplest level, it is a representation that you have about how things behave, and then how you interact with that, right? And it's the reason that we have to use something like this is because we can't understand. Yeah. Like there are too many influences. I mean, if we just talk about, and let's just say that we're movement guys, okay? Let's just say that, and everything we are is about movement. It's like we don't understand it. Like we just don't. There's just too many things. There are some principles upon which we can rely because they are universal principles. Right? Like everything has to follow physical principles. And so the more we understand those, the more we can try to understand how we demonstrate those principles. Okay. But again, we have to use a model because of the level of complexity, at least for me, it's beyond my understanding. Like there's going to be things that other people and they will understand other elements of this, but for me, it's like, it's virtually impossible. You just think about all the possible interactions. You've been in the purple room, and it's just like, it's like even the color of the wall makes a difference. Sure. Right? How much? I don't know. I try to create the home field advantage. But again, you just think about all the possible influence, like air temperature, color, like what their mood is, what they had for breakfast, like all of these things are actually factors in creating an end result. We just don't know how much of an interaction they are. And so we have to have a principle-based understanding of what is possible. And then we apply that, we intervene, we observe, and we say, okay, based on my understanding of the principles, here's what just happened. Here's how I can influence this. And then it continues on and on and on. Everybody becomes their own N=1 experiment under those circumstances. And again, a model is just a way that you represent the world and your understanding that allows you to interact effectively, we're going to be wrong, right? Because we know, and is this the point where I get to quote George Box?
You have to summon him.
I think that anytime you talk about models, you got to quote George Box. It's like all models are wrong, some are useful, and the idea is your model has to continue to evolve in its representation to allow you to be closer and closer to whatever the truth may be. And the way you identify that is like, so every time I intervene and I shift the probabilities in my favor, I'm getting closer and closer to what is the truth, or whatever reality that we can actually see. And so again, the model is just a representation, and some models are very, very extensive and some are lesser so, yet many people can be effective with different representations. But here's what should happen, Pat, is that if we got 20 people in a room, everybody's got 20 worldviews, everybody's got 20 perspectives. But what we should find over time is that all of our models start to converge towards something, and that would be representative of truth. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then eventually, given enough time, which would be beyond our lifetimes most likely, is that we should start to see this convergence where everybody has a similar representation versus 20 totally different worldviews, right? And that's the goal, is to keep moving towards whatever that truth may be.
Right. I mean, it's funny. I try to talk about this from the perspective of like, we are actually, from an evolutionary perspective, not designed to fully interact with reality. Like, there's constraints on our system. Like, we don't see the entire spectrum of light.
No,
we don't see UV or infrared. We don't hear every pitch that's available. If someone blows a dog whistle, you're like, "What? Why is this dog running?" You know. So there's safeguards put on the system because reality is too.
So that's a great way to look at it, because think about this. Think about the abundance of information that is available to us and how messed up we are because of it. Yeah. And it's like some people don't manage it nearly as well, and those are the people that are maybe they've got the diagnosis of anxiety or depression or something along those lines. It's like they're trying to manage something that might beyond their capabilities without a little bit of help. And so, yeah, imagine if you did see every spectrum of light or heard every, oh my God, it'd be just overwhelming. It's bad enough as it is.
Exactly. There's a lot of sensory overwhelm problems and information overwhelm problems that exist on this planet. And it's we're not.
But it's cool.
Yeah,
it is. Cool. It's really cool.
And I think the other part is like, I do think that when people have a very absolute certainty that they're correct, it's like a demonstration of hubris, where it's like, I mean, think of like the actual extent of reality is incredible. And like, we're on this planet hurtling through space around a fireball on an angle, at a bazillion miles an hour. Like it's the reality of it is daunting. And so, even inorganic movement, which is, I believe, a little bit more simple than animated organic movement, is very complicated from the perspective of everything that drives it. So organic movement is an incredibly overwhelming thing to think about in some ways. And I do find it interesting almost that the truth is arrived at as a collective vetting process.
Absolutely. It is. So think about it. It's like, think of all the possibilities. Okay. If one person had to do that, it would take forever.
Right.
So we have to take the experiments from everybody. And like I said, what you should see over time, and again, this will evolve and everybody gets closer and closer. And you see little bits and pieces of this process, because what you'll have is, and again, take a bunch of people with different worldviews, and you demonstrate something, and like 3 of those people will go, oh, that looks just like XYZ. And then another 3 people say, no, it looks like this. And the reason it starts to look like other things is because we are converging towards something that is a more truthful or realistic representation. So it should be a common representation, but people will always express things through the lens that they choose.
Yeah.
Right. that's a big part, and that's why you have arguments and discussions on the internet that turn into like turf wars and arguments and disagreements and things like that, is because they're choosing to have a limited perspective in saying, I'm going to stick with this and I'm going to defend it to the end because I don't want to be wrong. And that's a big part of the problem too. Yeah. It's like you have to recognize the fact that you don't have it. like right. You don't have the answer. And so, you got to keep your eyes open and your mind available to new information, because as the evidence adds up, you're going to have to change your reality.